Good morning, dear students.
Good morning.
Good. It's exciting that today too we're going to have a very interesting interaction. The series of seminars that we are organizing to build a great foundation for our students. And I'm happy that at least we have quite a number of you who are present now. What we're going to talk about is very, very critical to developing your thesis, and we have some seasoned people who are been asked to make the presentation today. Tamanja will introduce him more fully, Dr. Agyeman. But I believe that you are ready, and you are ready to take your notes and then write down your questions that you can ask at the end of the day. So welcome once again, and I believe that you will have a very joyful interaction. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Prof, so much for the time and for the brief welcome. So participants, welcome again to today's seminar. Today we'll be interacting with the facilitator on literature review. The facilitator is one of us. Is a very important and big person in the university. He is currently the director of the External Funnel Project Office. And he has a lot of experience and knowledge in research. He's done a lot of research in various aspects and different contexts and places in the world. He holds a PhD in migration studies, and he's worked as a research fellow in Japan. So you can imagine he will blend the experiences of the Ghanaian context, the Japanese context, the Italian context, and then the Spanish context. He studied in Spain, and he's currently heading the External Funnel Project Office. In fact, he's been sharing with many other people in the university, helping people to develop proposals, research proposals, funding. And then he's also busy working with the Goethe Institute and helping students or prospective students develop good proposals, get scholarship for the German Academic Exchange Services. So this morning I want to welcome Dr. Edmund Agyeman to share with us his experiences, knowledge, and understanding about literature review. So participants, you are welcome, and Dr. Agyeman, your participants are also waiting for you. Thank you very much.
Doc, thank you very much. So my senior colleagues that are online and our students, you are welcome to today's lecture on literature review. So as Doc said, I'm Edmund Agyeman. Unfortunately, I cannot control the slides. Doc, can you go to content, the table of content? So we are going to do a few things. First of all, we will look at the meaning. When we say literature review, what is it? So we will discuss that. Then we talk also about the purpose. Why do you have to do literature review? Then from there, we will go on to look at the procedure, the processes you have to go through when you review literature. Then so under that, we will talk about the search, literature search, reading, and then writing. Then we will give you a guide, a reading guide, which is more or less like a homework or an exercise for you. So as you read, you try to do what is in that guide. That guide was developed for me by a colleague, Dr. Seth Chunibua. The slides are many, but we are not going to discuss everything. There is part of these slides where I discuss what we call systematic review of literature. systematic review of literature is very common among those within the field of the sciences. Those in pharmaceutical sciences, medical sciences, they normally do systematic review. So this morning, I'm not going to talk about systematic review with you. And then also, there is also a reference that you can also go to do further reading. Doc, can we go to the next slide? Yes, so when we say literature review, what is it? What comes to your mind? I'm sure as academics or students that are doing PhD and Master of Philosophy degrees, already you have an idea of what a literature review is. But we still have problems of students not being able to review literature properly and ending up copying what other people have done. I think these things happen because many of us don't understand what literature review actually is. So, literature review, when we talk of the literature, it is a session of your research where you make extensive reference to existing literature. The first meeting that we had, Prof. Anamwa talked about a topic, choosing a topic. And one of the things that he said was that once you have an idea of whatever you want to work on, you have to read. And so the moment you have an idea, you can even get the topic that you want to work on out of the literature that you've read. But the moment you have an idea, the first thing that you do is to make extensive reference to existing literature on whatever topic you want to work on. Literature review is meant for the researcher to position himself or herself in relation to existing scholarship. Now, the topic that you want to work on, already people have done something around it. So it is out of the literature review that you are able to know what has been done already, where people have reached in the debate, and then position yourself. So it is when you've done proper literature review that you can be very, very strong and very original in the work that you do. Otherwise, you will find yourself repeating what others have done already. In literature review, you identify the theories and researches which have influenced your choice of topic and methodology. In designing your work, you have to justify it. You have to tell us why you think we should, or you should do what you want to do. If you are looking for funding, you have to let the funder be very sure that what you want to do is certain. So it is out of the literature review that you justify what you want to do. And then obviously, it's when you do literature review that you get yourself conversant with the theories in the field. That will guide you to also know how to structure or design your own work. Then the literature review also helps you to know the methodologies that others have used in that field, or to address the issue that you want to address. So it is proper literature review that will give you a guide to be able to have a very good research design. So what is the purpose of it? Literature review is very important for any academic work or any scholarly work. It enables you to demonstrate your knowledge of the topic. Any excellent work is predicated by a thorough review of literature. When you read a book or an article, the amount of scholarship in that work is demonstrated by how much the author has read or how widely the author has read. So when you are able to do a thorough literature review, you are able to demonstrate that you really have the competence or you really have control over the area that you are working on. The literature review also provides a historical background to your research and serves as a guide, because as you read literature, you trace and you are able to chart a path of all that others have done. And so that also serves as a guide for you in what you want to do. It enables you to demonstrate past and present advances in a particular field of knowledge. So you have found a topic you want to work on. It is out of the literature review that you are able to know what has been done in the past and what is being done in the present, as far as your topic is concerned. The literature review also gives an overview of the current context in which your research is situated by referring to contemporary debates, issues, and questions in the field. It helps you to identify research gaps while asking yourself, what has not been done? This question is very, very, very important. What has not been done? Because as you review literature, you are able to identify all that has been done. Then it is what has not been done yet that you focus on. That is where the gap is. But if you don't do thorough review of literature, you will not be able to identify what is yet to be done. So when you review the literature properly, it helps you to situate yourself properly. It helps you to know the current debates on the issues and then the current questions that people have asked or they are asking and they are trying to answer or they are trying to address within that field in which you are also situated. The literature review also helps you to identify relevant concepts, theories, and methodologies for your research. I think I've said this already, because you know, one of the important things for PhD or master's degree writing is the design of a framework, which is conceptual and then theoretical. It is when you do proper review of literature that you are able to do these things properly. The review also helps you to demonstrate how your work extends the debate or addresses a gap in the field. You situate and define what is new about your research and the contribution that you intend to make. If you haven't done a very thorough or a proper review of literature, you will never be able to show or to demonstrate that what you want to do is original. The literature review also helps you to refine your topic, questions, hypotheses, and method. It is very, very important. You have an idea, you have a topic in your head, you've identified a very important problem, and you want to convert that into a research topic. And then you want to design the research, you want to ask questions, you want to have your hypothesis and whatever. Normally, it is when you read widely and you identify or you are able to see how others have addressed the same issue or similar issue that you are able to refine your own topic. And then you are able to sharpen your research questions, hypothesis, and then the method. The review also helps you to analyze your findings and discuss them with rigor and scholarship. You know that academic scholarship is a conversation. Whenever you are doing research, you are doing it in conversation with what others have also done, the observations that others have seen, or the findings that others have discovered. So you are always in conversation with the others. So if you haven't read the others, if you haven't read widely, how are you going to do this conversation with them? So the literature also serves as the basis for your analysis of data and the conclusions that you draw. Because whenever you are analyzing data, you are doing that in conversation with others. And you draw your conclusions in conversation with other scholars. So you'll be able to do a proper data analysis when you have read widely, when you've done a proper literature review on the topic that you are working on. Now, we want to look at the procedure for literature review. What I'm going to tell you is not the only way that you can review literature, but this is one of the procedures that you can follow when you review your literature. So the literature review has a procedure. One, or the first among it, is literature search. Then the second is reading, and then the next is writing, analysis or synthesizing. So let's look at them step by step. The literature search. This constitutes an important aspect of your research. Once you have identified the topic, compile every literature available. This includes both published and unpublished literature, and you must start from general to specific. Let me explain. A lot of times, students, when I give lectures on proposal writing, students come to me and then they tell me what they want to do. There is nothing, it's new, it's entirely new, nothing has been done on it. They can't find literature. When you say that, it means that you haven't done sufficient search. Because as I said earlier, when you search for literature, you are looking for methodologies, you are looking for theories, you are looking for concepts. And so whatever topic you want to work on, already there are theories on it, there are concepts on it, there are methods on it that you can build on. So the literature review, the literature search means that you are not searching just on the topic that you are working on, but you are looking at so many things about the topic. And then when you are searching for literature, it's not just published work that you have to search for. There is a lot of unpublished work that is also part of what you need to collect in order to be able to develop a very good thesis. And then obviously, as you search, you start from the general, and then as you refine the work, the literature, you become more and more specific. Please, when you are searching for literature, we all know the repository, where the books are, is the library. So you need to visit the library and then talk to librarians and seek help from them. Librarians are very, very important. In fact, a lot of literature they know. There are some hidden things that are in the library that you may not be aware of. But when you go to the library and talk to them, they can guide you. If you travel to any country to go and do research there, and you visit the library, the first thing that you have to do is to talk to the librarian. Tell them about a topic you want to work on, and you will see that immediately they will start guiding you. They will be providing you with literature that you might not even be aware of. Now, if you are located in UEW, in Winnipeg, you have the University of Ghana Library, the BAM Library, the University of Cape Coast Library, and even the KNUST Library. That are all within your premise. You can visit them. I have done that very often. I have gone to University of Ghana Library a lot of times to look for books and also to work there. So the PhD students, PhD and MPhil students, you have to know that all these libraries are available for you. You don't have to depend on UUW library alone. But even UUW library too has to be used. You have to exhaust it. Then, in doing literature search, one important thing, and Prof. Anamwa said it the last time he gave his lecture, is to consult your supervisors, your professors. Whenever you have a topic in mind, tell them, and they will be able to guide you, to direct you to the literature. So your supervisor can help you to get an initial reading list. And that is very important. Then one other thing that you can do is to write to your colleagues and friends in other institutions. I've done that a lot of times, because sometimes you find some literature that you cannot access from your end. If you have a colleague in some of the universities in Europe or North America, you can write to them and ask them if they can get that material for you. So it's very, very important that you also learn to do this. And then sometimes too, there are some works that you find and you are unable to retrieve them. So you can write to the scholars whose work you cannot retrieve and request them. It is not every literature that you can download or access from your end. And so I have done that a number of times, and people have also written to me from Asia and Europe requesting my work, which I have sent to them freely. Because university professors are very happy when students write to them to request copies of the articles. So this is also something that you can do. If you do this, you avoid the practice of citing people in other people's work, which is very common in the thesis that some of you develop here. You don't need to be citing people's work in other people's work. You can write, or you can go to the main source of the work. So when you are searching for literature, there are a lot of materials that you have to look for. There should be variety in your thesis. So you can look for books. You can look for journal articles. You can look for dissertations. There are a lot of online repositories of dissertations, so that you can know how others also develop their dissertations, not going to copy them anyway or plagiarizing. Then also reports. Reports are very important. Then conference proceedings. Some of these, sometimes they are not even published. And then you can also get information from newspapers, periodicals, videos. Videos too are very important. And then so many other unpublished sources. So this is all the variety of sources that you can go to as you search for literature. So do not be one way, just articles and only articles, no. And then obviously some of the guides, to guide you to get to sources, you have to look for indices of journals of particular field. If you are in the field of education technology and there is a journal of education technology, you can maybe visit that journal website and look at the indices. It will help you to know the contemporary or the past and recent articles in that field that can be of use to you. I already talked about libraries. And then abstracts of articles. They can also guide you to know which articles really are important for what you want to do. Then the citation indexes, the well-recognized ones like Scopus. We have also more recently Google Scholar. Now, if you want to, you've discovered Professor Namoy's work. I was going to talk about Google Scholar. Google Scholar is very important. Oh, please, can you send a slide back? Yes. Google Scholar is very important because, for example, if you've seen that Prof. Namoy has developed some theories or some ideas that you want to rely on for your work, and he's on Google Scholar, you go there and you can see the list of all the works that he has done. Sometimes you find that some of them you can even download them. Maybe there are some that you may not be able to download. You can write to him. And so Google Scholar is very, very important. It helps you to be able to trace the works of a particular author that you want to rely on for your work. And so these are all sources that you can go to as you search for literature. Then please, here I put it in exclamation, attention. First of all, you have to check the authenticity of your sources. It's not everything you find on the net or every author that is worth reading. You know, these days, people are publishing so easily. You go to the net, there is so much there. It's not everything that you need. So you have to, as you search for literature, you need to be able to sort the good ones from the bad ones.
Yes, we are getting you.
Yes, so we have to avoid the use of predatory journals. You know, the predatory journals, they publish articles in a hurry because their focus is money. And so a lot of times, they don't peer review the papers that are published there. And so when you are doing a scholarly work like a PhD work or MPhil work, please avoid the predatory journals. And then you have to check author relevance in your area of interest. Whatever area that you are specializing in, there is an authority there, or there are authorities there. There are certain authorities that you may not be able to avoid. And so you have to make sure that those authors that you are relying on, they are relevant in that particular field. And so you have to ensure that you source the authority or the landmark works in your area of interest. Imagine you are working on migration, you are looking at the integration of South American migrants in the US, and you don't cite any work from Alejandro Portes. People will look at your work and they will tell you that no, this work is not a serious work, because Alejandro Portes is a pillar in the field, and he has developed theories that a lot of other scholars have relied on. So you cannot do without him if you are looking at South American migration, especially Cuban migration to North America. So whatever area that you are in, there is landmark work, there is authority, and you have to make sure that in your literature search, you include them. Then the next part is reading. Reading is the most difficult part. Why is it difficult? It's difficult because it requires a lot of time. And in our part of the world, many students tend not to have sufficient time for themselves. So anytime I give lectures on proposal writing, I talk about availability, and Prof also talk about it in his lecture. That you should be available. You should have time, because when you take a book and if you are reading a 250-page book or a 300-page book, if you dedicate so much time, even that alone can take you 2 weeks or 3 weeks. But if you don't have time, even in a year, you will not be able to read it. But if you're doing PhD, you have to read these materials. So reading requires a lot of time. Then you have to ensure you read that which is relevant and ignore those that are not relevant. Material that you have collected that you have to read. So when you are reading, you have to look at the abstract, look at the introduction or the table of content, and that should tell you whether you should go ahead to read the material or not. Or sometimes you take a book and it is a chapter of the book that will be relevant for your work. And so all of this should guide you. So read the abstract, read the introduction, read the methods, the findings and conclusions of the paper. And please, when you take articles, try to read them all. Don't just read a portion of it and then you write. Then, as you read, there are a few things that you need to do. You have to identify the key problems. You know, every research that we do is based on a problem. Every researcher is trying to address a problem, is trying to solve a problem. So when you take an article or a material you are reading, you should be able to identify the particular problem that the author is trying to solve. Then you should identify the research questions that the author is operating with, the author's objectives, the theories and methodologies that the author has used to address the problem. You can also look at the sampling procedures, the type of measuring instruments, and the method of analysis. So if you take an article and you are reading it, you have to make sure that you are able to identify all of these. So as you read, you have to ask yourself a few questions. One, ask yourself, what problem was the author addressing? This will help you to really situate yourself properly. And then you ask yourself, what methodology was used to address the problem? So this will help you to also know which methodology will work for you. Then you ask yourself, what are the main findings and conclusions of the work of the paper? And then you have to also ask, what is peculiar to this study? So what is different? What is new? How is this work or this research different from the others? So as you read, all of these things should be in your mind. Then you ask yourself, how does this work relate to previous studies? What advances has this study made in terms of theory, method, and findings? Then you then ask yourself, how does it inform my own work? That is, what do I take from this author? How applicable is this study to my own work? So sometimes when you read literature review of some of your, the literature side of some of the theses that you do, you go and cite so much work from India, from Asia, and whatever. Please, it's not any work that will be relevant. When you take the literature and you are looking at, you review it, you have to ask yourself, what am I taking? How relevant is this work to what I intend to do? How applicable? Is the method applicable? Am I going to adopt the method? Am I going to adopt some of the theories that the person has developed? the conclusions. How are the conclusions going to inform my own work? So whatever you read as literature should be relevant to what you yourself are doing. And so there are a few things that you need to do as you read. So as you read, remember to take notes. You have to take notes about the main argument, the methods, the findings, and then the conclusions. So it's very, very important that as you develop your PhD thesis, you get a notebook. So whatever literature that you read, please take notes. And then remember to update your reference list as you read. Some work will point you to other relevant literature. So like you found an article, you've read it, and you've seen that that author has also made reference to a very important book or very important article or work. Then you have to go and look for that one too. And that will help you to update your own reference list. And then as you read, you have to develop a mental map of what you intend to do. So reading, for me, requires a lot of concentration. When you are developing your PhD, you know that you are at the maximum of your thinking. And so there should be a lot of concentration on what you are doing. That will help you to be able to also develop a mental map of what you intend to do. And then you should also remember to develop an outline for your own write-up. Now, you need to set boundaries and parameters for your own work. You have to try as much as possible to limit your work. So too much of spread will make your research undoable. That is the reason why I said when you are searching for literature, you have to start from the general to particular. You have to make your work as limited as possible. Do not be so general. Don't be everywhere. And then you have to develop themes, conceptual and theoretical frameworks out of your reading. So as you read, you have to have the concepts, develop the concepts that you will rely on. And also you should be able to identify the theory that you think can properly help you to develop your own work. And also you need to be very flexible while you develop your own framework. And you must try as much as possible to be innovative and original. Don't just copy people. Be very innovative. Then writing. This is the most important part of your research because whatever you do, you end up writing. Writing requires a lot of thinking. Writing is different from talking. Some people can talk, but if you ask them to write, they are in trouble. Why? Because you don't just get up and you write. You do a lot of thinking before you write. And writing involves compiling, summarizing, synthesizing, and evaluating what you have read in relation to your own topic. So all that you have read, you should be able to summarize it. You should be able to synthesize it. And you should be able to evaluate it in relation to your own work. You can do this in two ways. One is descriptively, or the other is systematically. The systematic analysis of literature is particularly for those who are in the sciences. Doug, we are, yeah. Please, next. Yes, we are here. Sometimes too, you can organize the literature from a geographical perspective to enable comparisons, applications of theories and methods to determine, so you see that sometimes to the nature, depending on the nature of your work, you might be comparing regions, like comparing what is going on in Ghana to what is happening maybe in Nigeria or in Kenya or in South Africa. And in that case, you can organize the literature that way. If there is some study, for example, we have issues of snake bite in northern Ghana, and you want to do a study on it, maybe already similar issues have been happening in Kenya. You can look at the Kenyan research on snake bite and then try to also do something similar, following maybe the methodologies and theories that were used in Kenya. So sometimes you organize your literature according to geographical zones. So when you are writing, you need to indicate the theories and methodologies that have been used in the literature. You know, in writing, you are making an argument. So you have to tell us what theories and methods others have used to address. Yes, as you write, you have to indicate the theories and methodologies that have been used in the literature. So you have to tell us the line of thinking, how the ideas have been developed over from the past up to the present, and what kind of methodologies were used. And then you point out the advances and gaps in the literature. So as you write, you have to point out the advances and gaps in the literature. So if you really do good literature review, the authors that you are working on, if you are taking Professor Anamoah as maybe the authority in whatever you are doing, you have to let us know the advances that Prof. Anamoah has made, and you have to tell us some of the gaps in what you think he has made, and then make a case for your own. So you should be able to justify your own theories, which you are adopting, your own methods that you are adopting from the literature. So you have to tell us, Prof. Anamoah did A, B, C, D. You think that if he had done this and that, this could have been achieved. So you have to make a case as you write. Then when you write, you should remember to avoid plagiarism. This is becoming a big problem for us. Sometimes you may find that an author has done an excellent review of literature, which you may be tempted to copy. Avoid this as much as you can. If you go and copy literature, it means that you haven't done proper reading. And as I always tell students, you can never write if you haven't read. So once you've done proper reading, you will never need to copy anybody. So avoid plagiarism in your writing. We are having so many cases of students copying other people's work and presenting it as their literature review. Please don't do that. Don't follow those kind of behaviors. And then remember to reference properly all the sources that you have used. So as you read, you take notes, you write, reference them properly. This will facilitate future publication of your work after it is complete. Because if you don't reference properly and you finish the PhD and you are publishing, you will find yourself in a lot of difficulties because the reviewers will point you to, or will ask you to indicate the sources of what you are saying, and you will find yourself wanting. Yes. So this is a form of exercise for the students, the PhDs and MPhils. This guide, reading guide, was developed by my colleague, Dr. Seth Piniboa, and I want to present it here for you to also try your hands on it. So when you take a literature, whether a book or an article, and you are reviewing it, I think that before I go to do this, I think that in this university, we should develop a culture of our students, PhD students, reviewing book, doing book reviews, and publishing them in journals. So now, if you take a book or an article and you are reviewing it, among other things, you should read for one, the major and secondary concepts dealt with in the reading. So you should be able to identify the main point, the secondary point, and then the tertiary point. What is the main argument the author is making? What other things do you consider to be secondary? So you should be able to identify all of these. Then the summary of the reading. Now, what is the location of the argument that the author is making? What are the assumptions of the argument? And then what are the sources? So what literature, what authority does the author use, or what data that the author use to make the case that he is trying to put across? And then you have to tell us the facts of the argument. At least one, you should be able to identify one main point, 2 secondary points, and then 3 tertiary points. And then the relevance to contemporary context, or in this case, your own thesis. So you should be able to identify why the argument is important, or at least why the author thinks it is. So you may not agree with the author, but you have to identify one main point that tells us why you think the argument of the literature you are reading is important. And then you have to give us one illustration related to your own context. So, and then apply it to a problem. You as a reviewer, as an individual, you should be able to apply the work that you've read to probably the problem that you are trying to address. And then the discussion, engagement, or dialogue, foster dialogue. Then a general question you have for the author. So as you read the author, you should be able to identify some limitations. So as you read the author's work, you should be able to ask, why didn't you do this? Or why do you think this should be addressed this way or that way? So you as a reader, you should also have questions for the author. If you are reading Prof. Anamwa, you read his work, you should question the work. You should have questions for the work. And then a point of agreement with the author or the text. There should be a point of agreement between you and the author. There should also be a point of disagreement with the author. So you should also be able to identify some things that you think you don't agree with. So when you take literature, either an article or book or whatever you are reading it, please, these are some things that you should do as a form of exercise for yourself. Okay, so I think I have done about an hour, so I want to end here. My slides don't end here. There are some few more slides. I think you are going to have them. So where I give detailed analysis of systematic review of literature. But for today, I want to end here. So thank you very much.
So Dr. Agyeman, thank you so much for the time you have taken to explain in details how to do literature. I'm sure it will be very helpful for the students. And it doesn't matter whether they have advanced stage or the beginning stage of their work, because literature review doesn't end. Thank you so much for the insight that you have shared.
You are welcome.
I think I'll let Prof also say a bit of word before we look at the students' concerns. So, Prof.
Yeah, oh, okay.
Hello,
Thank you
Prof.
very much, Agyeman. Can you hear me?
You are welcome, Prof.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. I think this is a very well presented work. And I think it's going to be helpful to students if the students actually go through it and then utilize some of the ideas that you have suggested. It will be helpful for them. Literature review, I term it as a storytelling. You know, you're telling story from what different people have done, you know, and how you see yourself in the center of the story, you know. And it's very important, you know, one thing that we do not do for our graduate students is how to write, you know. The writing skills are not developed, you know, in our students in the university. There's no session where you can, in some university they have a place, you go there and you learn how to write, you know, so that when it comes to your thesis, you know what to write. Because it's a difficult, you know, from class 1 to A, we don't do it, you know. So when you reach the time that you're doing your PhD, it's like a big task. How do I write, you know, technical report like this, you know? So those points that have been given is very important. And if you do it well, as Dr. Agyeman said, if you do it well, you know, you can publish, you know, your literature review, you know, as a publication, you know, and some of us have done that. And, you know, you publish it, you know, because you've done a thorough work which really encapsulates what is in the field, you know, and everybody want to, you know, have something like that to see how, you know, they also, you know, visualize it. So, dear students, I think that this is a good starting point for us and for you. You need to really pay attention to the things that have been said today. You know, it's for your own good, and if you dedicate yourself very well, and I'm sure that you will succeed in what you are doing. It will not be a stressful work for you. It will be an enjoyable work, you know, because as I said, you were telling a story, you know, about, you know, something that is around the field that you are interested in, and that story puts you at the center and makes you the one who is really orchestrating, like a music, somebody orchestrating a music concert, you know. So that's where you find yourself, you know. So thank you very much, Dr. Agyeman, and I pray that the students will have some questions for you. Thank you.
Welcome, Prof.
Thank you so much, Prof, for kind words. Dr. Agyeman, there are some few concerns here. A student is asking how to get over the challenge whereby your supervisors are usually not experts in the area. How can the supervisors at the early stages of the literature review lead us into the contemporary and relevant body of knowledge? And then another one says, please, I want to find out the differences between Google Scholar and advanced Google Scholar. Then we have another one. How can one do the sorting of literature in terms of what is authentic? And then, please, how many pages can one write a literature review? I think we can respond to these ones and we'll continue with the others.
Okay. Yes, so the first question, supervisors not being expert in the area, that is impossible. That is impossible. No supervisor will supervise a work in which he's not an expert. And I think if a university gives a supervisor, but if you are doing a PhD in educational technology, and they give you a supervisor who is in the field of social studies, how will he be able to supervise the work? So I don't agree with the student that we have supervisors that are not experts. Every supervisor should be an expert in the area. So if they give you a supervisor who is not an expert in the area that you want to do your research, then you have to ask for the supervisor to be changed. And we have all done that before. I remember when I started a PhD, the initial supervisor that was assigned to me, I later on changed him because I wanted to give a more of a sociological dimension to my work. And so I made a request and I was given a different supervisor of my own choice. And so you don't have to work with supervisors that are not experts on what you intend to do. And then there is also a question of sorting of literature. That is the reason why I said you have to go to authentic sources. You have to avoid predatory journals. So in every field, there are journals, there are indexed journals. So if you use them, the sources are authentic. If you use books that have been published from recognized publishing houses, those sources are authentic. And obviously, if you also use the authority within the field, that nobody is going to contest the authenticity of your sources. So, as I said, there's so much on the net, so it's not everything that you have to use. So that is very important. Then somebody is asking about the number of pages.
Yeah.
That is very difficult to say because, well, I think that one, maybe Dr. Tamaja or Prof. Anamwa will have more to say about this because I know that UEW, they have their own way of organizing or of determining the PhD volume and other things. My PhD has 11 chapters. And here I hear that in UW, I hear that PhDs are supposed to be, I think, 5 chapters or so. But for me, the literature review is not just a chapter, it's all the work. In all parts of the work, you are actually reviewing literature. You are in dialogue with literature. So some of the work, you don't just have a session and saying that it is a literature review. No, the literature review is everywhere in the work. And then sometimes too, you develop the thesis first of all, looking at works that have been done, theories that have been used, methods that have been used to justify your own, which can be a chapter of your work. But a chapter should be a reasonable one. I cannot tell you how many pages you should have in a chapter. I think all of that will be between you and your supervisor. I remember when I was writing my second MPhil thesis, I wrote a chapter of 50 pages, and my supervisor said I should reduce it to 25 pages, which I did. And so I cannot tell you. Then somebody is saying Google Scholar and Google what?
Advanced Google Scholar.
It's the same. The same. Some of them you have to pay, and some are free. So for Google Scholar is free. If you want an enhanced one, you may have to pay money, I think.
Okay, I think like I said when I was before this interaction section, that the literature review is a continuous process. So even those who are on their chapter 5 or finalizing, you can still see literature that is relevant to your work, which you want to include. So you
Yes.
may not, it may be difficult to limit the number of pages for literature review. It's continuous. But of course, it also depends on the variables that you are going to contend with in your work.
Yes.
Then your supervisor. So I think that students should consult their supervisors more and then look at other works instead of just copying and pasting and not examining as we have been doing. Okay, there. Please, how many articles or theses should be read before concluding one has read enough, before concluding that one has read enough literature for a PhD? Now, please, how many theories do you consider appropriate for a thesis? Is it necessary to write both conceptual and theoretical framework? And then Edmund says that conceptual and theoretical framework, which takes precedence in your review of literature. And then, please, how do you identify predatory journals? Thank you for a wonderful presentation. Please, how can we, access the, don't worry, this one is not for Dr. Agyeman. I think, Doctor, we can respond to these ones.
Yes. So how many articles? No, you are trying to read the advances in the field. So you don't have to have a limit and say that if I read 20 or 30, I am done. No. You have to be sure that you have exhausted the field. Really, if you are doing PhD, you have to exhaust the field. And I think in that case, your supervisor will advise, will support you. Because like if you take a PhD thesis like my own, I have about 200 sources or references. And I read them all. And some may have less, some may have more. So it depends on what you want to do and the work that has already been done in that field. So we cannot give you limits. But what is important is that you have exhausted the field, and you need to exhaust the field. If you are using the words of all his works that are relevant to the field or to your topic, you have to read them. In addition to that, other related works that you think are relevant, other critiques that people have made on his works, you have to also get those materials and exhaust them. And so that is what you do. You don't have to put any limit from the beginning. Then, how many theories? Oh, you don't have to use many theories. Normally, one theory is okay. Look, when you read literature, you tell us what approach people have used to address the issue and what maybe theories people have developed out of whatever problem you want to solve. Sometimes there may be a theory that you want to test, you want to advance, you want to use as the basis for your own work. So in the thesis, there shouldn't be so many theories that you are using. No, one will be okay normally. Then conceptual and theoretical framework. I think probably you maybe the one who asked this question, he doesn't understand them. And we talk of conceptual framework is the concepts. If you are writing on child labor in Ghana, so child is a concept, labor is a concept, Ghana is a concept. So it is these three issues or these three concepts that you are dealing with. So that it is how do you relate them that will then help you end up building your framework. So child, labor, Ghana. So how they are related is what, yeah. Then the Afro theories, I believe you understand theory. So they are not the same things. And you, as I said earlier, you look for a theory that fits very well in what you want to do, the concepts that you want to examine. You look for theories that you think can inform you properly to do whatever you want to do. So none of them, the one who asks which of them takes precedence, none of them takes precedence over the other because they are not the same. Theory is different from concepts.
Okay,
yeah,
there's a thumbs
so,
up for you here. Emo says, Prof. Hello?
Yes, I'm listening.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, Emo says, Prof, you couldn't have said it any better. Throughout my first and second degrees and now PhD at UW, it's now I am really getting to know what goes into research writing. So thumbs up for you.
Okay, so I think thumbs up for the organizers of this program. I think this program is very relevant. I listened to Prof. Anamwa now. I really enjoyed his lecture. Unfortunately, I traveled, so I couldn't follow the others. For me, I think this is a very important initiative.
They will be on YouTube for you to check anytime you want to. Somebody's asking, what is the meaning of citing people in other people's work? And then Charles is asking, may I please know if it is allowable to cite from newspapers? Can a front page newspaper headline be cited to buttress a point? Yes, I think he spoke about not only published works. So there are many places, but he says another person, Mohammed, is that when you said predatory journals, what exactly do you mean? And then Dominic says, Doctor, how do you identify predatory journals? I think it's becoming an issue now. Many of them are concerned about that. And then I suggest that Iris should try and carve out practical research sessions for us to learn more. Hands-on research sessions. Seth says that, please, sir, what is the relationship between theoretical framework and literature review? And so for those who are asking for the link to these presentations, it has been provided for you. So you can click on it and to take you to the presentations. And I will be updating you as and when we upload them. So the link is on it. You have https://www.youtube.com/channel/UCBLU, all caps, -5AQNL. So that link is there for you to be able to watch all the presentations that we'll be having here. Now, Stanley says that in exhausting the literature in a particular field, should time be a factor as in not going beyond articles that are over 10 years old? And then Alex says that, please doc, my question is long, so I would like to make it verbal instead. Wallace, I will talk to the administrator to see if we can allow you in to make a verbal presentation. Please, Doctor, are there similarities between theoretical framework and conceptual framework? I think you have handled this, Doc.
Yes. Doc, can I address this one first? Can I address these ones?
No problem.
Yes. So the first was citing people in other people's work. So you say Professor Anamwa cited in maybe Professor Dr. Tamanja, or cited in Tamanja. Yeah. So when do you do this? You do this when you are unable to have access to the original work as written by Professor Anamwa. So sometimes we do this because we haven't really made the effort. So we are saying that in developing PhD or serious thesis, you have to do your best to get to the source. Because sometimes when you cite people's work cited by others, you may be in problems, because sometimes the person may cite the others wrongly, or even sometimes out of context. So it's very important that in writing PhD thesis, you do as much as you can to get to the main source of the work. There are some works that you may not get, but some you can get. And then citing from newspapers. Yes, as Dr. Chamanja said, newspapers are all sources. Some researchers may even rely on newspaper publications. For example, if you are doing research on child trafficking or human trafficking in Ghana, you can decide to rely mainly on newspaper reportage. So you can take the Daily Graphic, the Ghanaian Statesman, and the others, and do analysis of how they have reported these issues over a period. So yes, you can cite from newspapers. All that is important is that you indicate the source, so that if people want to find out, they can get to the source. And then the identification of predatory journals. Yes, you know, predatory journals are not indexed. And some universities have made effort to also list journals that they consider predatory. And I know that in South Africa, University of Cape Town and other universities have done that, and they update the list all the time. So you can you can maybe get to the websites of these universities and then find out which journals they have listed there as predatory. And then obviously, you know, there are two ways. Sometimes you are doing literature review. You are doing literature review and you are looking at the works of some authors. So, for example, if you are examining the works of Professor Anamwa, you will not fall into that trap of sourcing materials from predatory journals, because he will never publish there. So now, for me, I advise that within your field of specialization, you should identify the journals there that are very well recognized, or that are indexed, that are in Scopus or at the other professional groups, so that you are sure that this journal I'm reading or this article I'm reading is from a very recognized source. It's not anything at all. So somebody said, what is a predatory journal? Is it possible? Predatory journal is what do I even say? It's a journal which is not recognized by within the academic field. The name predatory actually explain. They just copy anything at all. You send article to them, you pay money, and then quickly they publish it. It doesn't go through normal peer reviews that articles go through in journals. All that they need is money. And so those kind of journals have issues of quality and authenticity. Even people can steal other people's articles and go and publish them in predatory journals. Then relationship between theoretical framework and literature review. You know, you do literature review to be able to develop a theoretical framework. If you don't do proper literature review, you will never know which theories have been used to address the issue that you want to address. And so you read A, B, C, D. You do this, and that, and then you then conclude on which one you think fits well in what you want to do. So there is a relationship. And then somebody talk about time factor in exhausting literature and whether you should read literature which is over 10 years. No, there is no time limit as far as literature is concerned, as well as far as theories are concerned. So if you are working on the gravity theory by Newton, that is an old theory, but somebody can revisit it depending on what you want to do. If you are doing work on Professor Anamoah, some of his literature will take you back to probably the 1970s, and you have to look at all of these. When I was working on return migration from Southern Europe to Ghana, I look at literature on return migration, and it took me as far back as literature that were developed in the 1950s and 60s. So I trace all of that. That is why I said when you are doing literature review, you are also looking at the historical development of the idea. And so there is no time limit. We know that you have to also be confident with the current debate, but you have to also know what happened in the past, how the debate started. So all of that is very important. So there is no time limit. Yeah, so thank you very much. Doc, you can bring the other questions.
Okay. So, Doc, please, I want to ask, as a way of handling plagiarism,
yeah,
our works pass through something, 10, sorry, 10, I guess. And another was asked is that, please, can both conceptual and theoretical framework be used in your work, even though they are two different frameworks? This is from Matilda. Justice says that many times, Doc, it is a nice presentation from your end. As a fresh graduate who aspires to do continuous studies, I have gained an appreciable knowledge on literature review. So thumbs up, Doc. This is a prof. What is research design? The person asking the question on research design, it will be facilitated later. So don't bother Dr. Agyeman so much today. We'll answer in subsequent presentations.
Yeah.
Somebody's asking of the link. The link has been provided. Georgina is saying that my colleagues are still asking this question about conceptual and theoretical framework because some of us wrote both and our supervisors rejected it. Thanks for your wonderful explanation. Somebody's asking, the cases we too make about the authors, are we to express them in the literature review chapter or in the chapter 4 when making analysis? Please mention an example. Okay. Emmanuel says that thank you so much for that presentation. Please, Doc, is it accepted to use the same theories used by another author in a similar study, in a similar area of study? Francis is asking, please, what is the difference between literature review and review of related literature? Mohammed says that, thank you, Doc. But some supervisors tell their students not to look at works that have been done 20 years or even 10 years ago. So those are the next set of concerns.
Okay, so Doc, thank you very much. The first question on plagiarism, and then the plagiarism test. You see, as a scholar, as a student developing a PhD or a master's degree, you yourself, if you are plagiarizing, if you are stealing other people's work, you know. And as Prof. Anamoa said a few minutes ago, you know, most of this happen because we don't have good writing skills. We don't know how to write properly. And so we read, but when we are writing, we tend to be copying. So I think writing skills is something that we need to learn to acquire. When you have very good writing skills, you will not plagiarize, because you know that when you are writing and you are introducing some other people's ideas in what you are writing, you have to show the references. There are ways like if you are quoting, you have to put it in quotation marks. If you are paraphrasing, you have to let people know by indicating the source. So I think it happens because people are, they don't have very good writing skills. But I also think that plagiarism also happens because some people are just lazy. They don't want to work. They only want to have a degree. And so all that they do is to steal. They in fact, develop a master's degree or PhD with the intent of stealing. Because once you have already read properly and you have written, you've done your own writing, it's very unlikely that you fall within the trap of plagiarism. And so that is my advice for you. For me, I think that before you write, read thoroughly. Once you've read thoroughly, you will not fall within that trap of plagiarism. And if you want to do PhD or master's degree, please be very committed to what you intend to do. And then you need to really sacrifice a lot of time, a lot of your time. And as I said earlier, use the libraries. If you are a PhD student in UEW, nothing stops you from going to the BAM library in Legon to go and stay there to do some of your writing. Nothing stops you from going to the Samjona library in UCC to go and work there. I've done that a number of times. Last year, I was in BAM library for over 2 weeks writing. So when you do this, there is no danger, or there's very little likelihood that you are going to steal other people's work because you have time to do your own work. So please, that is the little advice I'll give you. Okay, so research design will be taught soon. And then chapter 4. What is chapter 4? Because I don't, I don't supervise PhD students here, so I don't know, what is it? The analysis session. So the literature runs through all chapters of your work. You know, the first part of your work where you talk about the theories and concepts or the design of your work. Yes, there you are debating with what people have done already. But even as you do the analysis, you should still be in conversation with the literature. So the literature review is everywhere. And then supervisors telling students to use more recent work. It all depends, because yes, sometimes you supervise the first degrees, their thesis or long essays, and you see that all the literature they have referenced, they are in the 1990s or 1980s. When that happens, what does the supervisor think? The supervisor will immediately think that, this thesis is not original. Maybe it's an old thesis that you are reproducing. Otherwise, why will all the literature be in the 1990s or 1980s or 2000s when we are already in 2020 and there is work in 2020. So please, sometimes maybe when supervisors say you should use more recent literature, maybe you don't understand what they mean. What they mean is that you should know what is happening now. Don't go and steal somebody's work that was, which you call grandfather. Somebody's work that was developed in the 1980s, and you think that nobody is aware of that work. You present it as your own work. No, it is when you do that that you find so much old literature in the work. But if you really do the work now and you read, there will be a mixture of old and more recent literature, because you are developing a line of thought. So I should see the debate starting, if it starts from 1980, I should see the debate developing up to 2020. So that is what the supervisors mean when they say you should cite more recent literature. Thank you very much. Doc, are there a few more questions?
No, there are no longer questions.
Okay.
One has just dropped. One, Edu says that I will be very happy if reference management software such as Mendeley and VOS Viewer, hands-on practical practice can be added to this. Okay, this is not for you, Doc. That is for,
no, but I think that no, let me address it, because I think that as a PhD student or master's student, you have to learn to handle these things on your own. You don't need to go for lectures for you to be able to do this, because it's a software that once you download it, you can handle it on your own. So these are things that we don't need to attend lectures to learn to use them. And obviously, these softwares, you learn by using it. So that's the advice I can give.
Gideon wants to know the reference style accepted in this writing per the UEW. And then a colleague asks the difference between review literature and review of related literature. Will the difference be made known? So the reference style of UEW, and then the difference between literature review and review of related literature.
So both literature and related literature is the same. It's the same thing. So it's all literature. So maybe if the professor said related literature, maybe he's referring to literature related to what you are doing. You understand? So as I said, if you are developing the work of a thinker, of a philosopher, or if you are doing, and you are like, if you take the works of Paulo Freire, now you go to the original works of Paulo Freire, you look at them, and you look at what others have made of his work, the criticisms of his work, the advances of his work. So all of that is part of the literature that you need to look at. So whether you say it is a literature or related, it's the same thing. Then the second question, now what is the second question? Hello? Hello, Dr. Temanya, what was the second question?
Hello.
Hello?
Yes.
You mentioned two things. There is one question I don't remember. I didn't write it.
It was this thing we are talking about, the software, learning how to use a specific software. That one you have explained.
Yes.
No, okay, this one is about the referencing style of
UEW. Oh, but UEW is not an EPA.
Use the EPA.
Yes.
Yes, APA.
Yes. And then, but if you are publishing in an article in a journal, the journals, each journal will determine what kind of referencing style that you should. So for you to use the APA.
Okay, so Dr. Agyeman and then participants, we are so grateful for your time, and especially to Dr. Agyeman for the time that and then the energy he has put to get us up to this point. And I'm sure that many of us who have some doubts and challenges with how to review literature, some of those things have been cleared. And it doesn't matter which level we are in our process, in our PhD journey. We have been told that literature review is a continuous process. Even before you defend, you can still add things when you have found literature about what you are working on. So let us continue to read and to make the work of, to improve upon our work and lessen the burden on the supervisors, especially when we are battling with huge numbers. It becomes difficult for supervisor to give you attention when you're not showing any sign of seriousness, especially copying people's work, working on using grandfathers and expecting that because that grandfather went to whatever your supervisor says should be accepted, or whatever you send should be accepted because that document that you're using passed. Let us disabuse our minds from that and listen to our supervisors, but also read widely. I would, at this juncture, want to call on Director Professor Mensa to close the session.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Tamanja. I think we've had a very wonderful session. Thanks to you, Dr.
Agyeman,
for the brilliant presentation. I'm sure that students are still, trying to munch whatever has been given, in order to really internalize some of them. I think that, over time, they will overcome some of the difficulties they have. I've seen patients that have been coming, plagiarism issues, conceptual framework, theoretical framework, and maybe when you come to design, methodological framework, and so on will come in, So those things will come in. These are terminologies that any graduate, postgraduate students should be, familiar with, as you go along. You need to read about them, to understand them, to ensure that you're really on top of your game. Some of the questions you asked about referencing and plagiarism, next week, Tuesday, we're going to have that. Somebody's going to make a presentation on that. Then the design will come later on. So you also have to refer to the timetable that we have given you, and then see which sections will deal with some of the problems that you may have. And if you do that, then you follow things smoothly, and ask questions which, the presenter is not, presenting to you. I think it's very important. Let us all be very serious about this. It's such a good foundation for everybody, and it makes your work as a thesis producer, easy. PhD thesis and MPhil thesis, they are not like the bachelor's degree project. You go into more details than just putting things together at your in your bachelor's project. So it's quite different, and you need to know the rubrics for doing that. And this is, today we have been introduced to the how to do a literature review, and I think that if you take it seriously, you'll be the better man or better woman, and UEW will be the one who gains from it. If we're able to, churn out a lot of PhD people, in the university. I mean, that's all universities want to be called research universities. A research university will require that you have at least quite a large number of people, in the what do you call it, in the PhD or postgraduate programs, at least 20%, or 25%. And I think that's what, we need to, and then those people they finish their work within the 3 years, 4 years maximum, they are finished, and I think that's what we want to, this is meant to do, to build a foundation so that you don't, have any serious difficulties in your work. So I wish you all the best as you take these tidbits that have been given into consideration and try to apply them to your work. And that if you have difficulties, you can then discuss with some of the presenters that have presented to you, for clarity, and I'm sure they would be willing to do that for you. So thank you very much. I wish you all the best. And Agyeman, kudos to your board for doing a good job for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof.